Thanks everybody for joining in. Joining us on Just Crittin Around. We want to, myself, I'm Just, and that would be Crit.
Yeah.
My counterpart. What's going on, Crit?
Nothing much, man. Hanging in there, live and direct from Charlotte, North Carolina.
And you know where I reside. Okay.
Okay.
Some people say we're in the Midwest. Some people
Y'all
say
are,
we're in the South. We're kind of.
You guys are fishing over there. You guys are currently fishing.
Yeah, we got an early trip, but hey, we made it to the playoffs in the Western Conference.
That's true.
I can't be too mad. We got to get Russ some help.
Yeah.
But so speaking of Russ, I know we wanted to talk. Russell Westbrook MVP season, and there's a lot of debate, and so we can talk about that to start off with. If he had an MVP season, because I know Harden had a great season, but did this series help him? And we know the MVP voting is already in before this series started, but does this series help him? Great.
I don't think it helps. I mean, the voting's already in, so most likely I think anybody with some common sense knows that Russell Westbrook probably won. I don't think it hurts or helps him in any way. The one thing, if anything, it probably helps his case. It shows that he didn't have the teammates that James Harden actually had on his team. James Harden had Lou Williams coming in off the bench averaging 19 a game, while Russell Westbrook has a dude on the free throw line shooting 3 for 21 in the series. Like, that's just the cold hard facts of the issue right there. I just don't understand why it's even a debate anymore. The man averaged a triple-double first time in like 50 years since Oscar Robertson did it. Both of them went out in the first round of the playoffs, so there's similarities there. I think ultimately, if anything, it just strengthens his case, showing that without him, the Thunder wouldn't be where they were. The Thunder were a one-dimensional team. Yeah, he puts up a lot of shots, and that's a different discussion. But he had to do that. The ball had to be in his hand 24/7. Without Russell Westbrook, the Thunder wouldn't be what they were yesterday.
Right. Yeah. I got to agree with you on that. And just to look at some of the stats, I mean, the Rockets, to me, the big first of all, Russell Westbrook is the MVP. I'm sorry. If you go, a record that has stood for over 50 years, you break it. And yeah, people say chase rebounds, chase assists, but I mean, this is a 6'3", 6'4" point guard that is going up and rebounding against 7-footers, and who cares if some of his his teammates are letting him do this.
And not to cut you off, but I think that's ultimately a part of the game plan. The plan is to get the ball up and down the court, it seems like.
Right.
So you want Russell Westbrook to get the ball right away and initiate that fast break. It's like playing in rec leagues as a little kid. There's always the fastest kid. He'll get the rebound and push it right away. It's just an easier bucket.
And so that's actually how their offense starts. And if you see him, he gets the rebound, and he's actually at half court when there's still two defenders still in the backcourt. So, I think it's no doubt, before this series, he was MVP. And I think even after this series, if the voting were to take place today, I would still, I think if anything, I would have a more favorable response to voting him as the MVP candidate. Because to me, the series was about free throws. Like you said, you mentioned, Andre Robertson. He can't, he's just, you can't be just that completely one-sided in the NBA. But the Rockets shot 80% from the free throw line for the series. The Thunder shot 69%. I mean, that's 11%. And then on top of that, the Rockets shot 168 free throws to the Thunder's 135.
And that's just a testament to James Harden's game, I guess, if you want to put it that way. The man drives more to get fouled than to shoot. And, I mean, if that's the way the refs are going to call it, I don't blame you, ultimately. But playing against it would definitely get frustrating.
Yeah.
And
I think they got to fix that, on the continuation on the three-point shot. Because, I mean, it just seems like a couple years ago, people would get fouled and they'd put up a shot and they would always call it on the floor. And in college, they always call that on the floor. They just got to, if they're going to call the foul, call it on the floor.
Exactly.
It can't be a three-point play.
The continuation is just a little ridiculous these days with what they allow.
It is. So, but yeah, we'll see what the Rockets do. That being said, what does Russ need to fix to take them to the next level Granted, if he gets a couple more pieces to the puzzle, what does he need to fix?
See, I'm kind of the mindset, I don't think he needs to fix anything. He might shoot a little too much, but that's what the team he had now. We saw what he did with KD. They were a game away from the finals last year, and then they had a meltdown. Like, if the hardest problem for Westbrook and the Thunder now, in my opinion, is probably going to be attracting – like, if he wants a true number two, not a Victor Oladipo type number two who's going to be a good, player every now and then for, make shots when he's open. If he wants somebody who can create their own shot without him, it's going to be hard to attract that free agent to come to Oklahoma City. It's just a smaller market. Because just put it this way, if he was going to go to Oklahoma City and somebody's offering them $20 million, if it's like the next big free agent, Gordon Hayward or something, he needs somebody like that. And if OKC's offering that and somebody over in LA or in California is offering that, you're more inclined to go to California, depending on the player, obviously. Some might want to win and be like, hey, I want to play with Russ. But the play style of Russ is kind of, depending on the player you are, he's really ball dominant. So if he's going to continue to shoot like that, but I think it's got to be behind him. I think he wanted to prove a point to KD, like, hey, I can do this without you. And he got his triple-double season in. I think he can go back to playing the true point guard or even a two guard, however you want to use him. He's just a weapon. So I think ultimately there's nothing he really needs to change. It's just a matter of, can ownership go out there and build a continuous winner around him. He needs, like you said, the pieces. Doug McDermott didn't really work out yet. I definitely would give him another year, but they just need to definitely go into free agency and see what they can do there.
I think, somebody, if they could, work some pieces of the puzzle, somehow attract like a Paul George or a Gordon Hayward down to Oklahoma City. If they have that piece of the puzzle, somebody that could create their own shot, I think it'd help. But what I think and what I noticed in this series that he needs to fix, and I think we've all been in this spot before, if you've played basketball in your life, there's been some time, unless you're Michael Jordan, that you were not maybe the best player on your team. Maybe it's AAU ball, maybe it's, in college and high school, but you might have played with a great person. And sometimes that great person is a leader on the court by his actions. But if you look at Russ's demeanor when he is out on the court and it's in crunch time, look at his gestures when somebody does something wrong. And
like the turnovers, yes.
He's going at him and saying, this is BS. What are you doing? And especially young players, you cannot do that to, because it ruins their confidence. And that's what you saw in the fourth quarter. The only person that showed up besides, catching putting a putback dunk or, catching a lob, there was nobody that could take, that had the confidence, especially Oladipo and others.
Turnovers hurt. Those two turnovers back-to-back by Oladipo, the wild passes, they're Westbrook. Right. You can just tell instantly Westbrook was over.
Yeah, and so to me, that, sometimes I've been on that side before where I've played with a great player, and sometimes they're on you and it ruins your confidence. So he's got to find a way to channel that and be like other greats that aren't necessarily going out and attacking them. Not that he means to, because I think it's genuine. Yeah. I think he's not putting on a facade that he's angry out there. I think he's just, that's the way he is. He's a winner, but he's got to control that in the clutch.
And just to build off of what you say, that's a perfect opinion, because honestly, it's like going out there and playing at the rec or anywhere you play, but just pickup ball. Like you said, you're not going to be the best, but you're going to have that guy there. And it just seems like in pickup ball, at least, they're always like, keep shooting. If you're a shooter and you're not making stuff, they're going to tell you to keep shooting. But it seems like Russ, he knows what's on the line in the fourth quarter and he wants to win. So he wants the decision to be made by himself.
Right.
So it might be a little selfish in the terms of things, but it's hard this season. Like we said, the pieces weren't there compared to other teams. Like, they were the worst team compared to the Rockets. Like, you can't expect much. The fact they were in those games solely because of Russell Westbrook just is a testament to his season. Like on the first point we talked about today, it's just fixing things. I guess giving people confidence is ultimately a good point, because 2 for 11 at some point you got to realize it's not falling for you. So you need to.
And it's just body language too. It's how he reacts to players when they make a bad play or they make a decision that he doesn't think's right. You got to, you got to empathize with those people and just you got to be a little different out on the court. And that's one thing. He's a great player, but if he fixes that, I think he's going to excel his teammates in the fourth quarter in crunch time because he's going to get a lot more help. But
so speaking of speaking of Paul George, I know we're getting back a little bit. Paul George or Gordon Hayward, you're out in Oklahoma City. Do you think they really have a shot of bringing somebody like that to Oklahoma City?
It's not really Sam Presti's style because he got Durant obviously in the draft, Westbrook in the draft.
He's more opposed to blowing teams up.
Yeah. So I don't know. We got to see. I think if somebody like Paul George, if they want to win a championship and, if the option is like LA and they don't really have the pieces of the puzzle there, or, another team that he knows legitimately he's not going to contend, and Oklahoma City has this team with him on it, I think it might be more of a contender. I still don't know if they could beat Golden State or anything like that, but I think it just depends, if it's an attractive offer and he's right. Paul George is in Indianapolis and that's not necessarily
that's true.
A large market. So I could see him. And same thing with Salt Lake City. If you've been to Utah, it's a nice place, but it's not a super large market. So it's a little comparable to Oklahoma City.
Yeah.
So we'll see, but I hope so.
That'd be interesting because Paul George, he wants the ball in his hands at the end of the game, and so does Russell Westbrook. So it would get a little tense there again. But that would just be an upgrade to Roberson. You wouldn't have somebody shooting 3 for 21. He can play on offense. So that'd be the dream for the Thunder is to get Paul George for sure.
Yeah, that'd be 2 options. But let's go on to something else we're going to talk about, and that is Garyon Conley. Accused of rape, Ohio State draft prospects. What are your thoughts, Crit?
I mean, reading the article, there's not a lot of details out yet. Just kind of like he said, she said, no warrant has been filed or anything. But it took place in a downtown Cleveland hotel, I believe, the Westin. And this guy is projected to be a top 10 draft pick. And if I'm an NFL GM, I'm passing instantly. If you can't keep your life, I heard it on a Coward show earlier. If you can't keep your life buttoned up for a month before the draft, you don't deserve to sign that contract. You might be a good player, but it's like we saw with La'el Collins last year. The article mentions it. He fell out of the first round and ultimately went unsigned. So he's a great talent. He was projected the number 2 corner off the board right behind his teammate. There's not much to go off of, but I wouldn't even take the light of day on this kid. I would definitely pass. I would get the next best player on the board if I'm a GM and just move on from there because I don't want this PR on my organization. I don't want to have to deal with the outside headaches that come in with it, especially if it turns out to be true. So
yeah, I think he's definitely going to fall in the draft. If I'm a GM, he's not even the best corner from Ohio State that's coming out in this draft, but he is a legitimate corner. And we know, some of the lifestyles that some of these football players live. I agree. He needed to keep it, put away for at least a month. But, reading this USA Today article, it says the report states the woman met Conley in the elevator and then agreed to go to Conley's room. And then Conley asked if she wanted to go to the bathroom to have sex with another couple. All right. Okay. And she said she didn't want to go to the bathroom, or she didn't want to go have sex, but she wanted to go to the bathroom to watch. Okay. So let's put this into perspective. Crit, you don't do drugs, but let's just say we're at a party and you said, hey, Justin, let's go into this other room. There's some people doing cocaine. Do you want to join? And if I say, no, I'm just going to go in the room and watch you guys do cocaine. No, that's not going to happen. For one, everybody around, people, I don't know people that do cocaine or other drugs, but I'm assuming that they don't want me just kind of speculating in and them doing drugs.
It's not a viewer sport.
Right. Not exactly. And so I'm going to say, and this is pure speculation, but, she got in there and she was down for everything. And I don't know, man, Conley might have been packing some heat that she couldn't handle. And, that's probably the wrong thing to say if that's wrong, but this is pure speculation. And I just think that, she saw some dollar signs flying up and put them in a bad situation after
definitely
that.
Money grab. Definitely money grab. It kind of has that written all over it because she probably realized at the time, maybe she didn't know, maybe someone's like, hey, this guy's going to be, maybe they're talking about it in the room or something.
Right.
Like, this guy's going to be a draft pick. And so if you're going to – that's ultimate money right there. If you're at a downtown Cleveland hotel, like, what are you there for in the first place?
Right.
You're just hanging out in the elevator. I don't know if she's from out of town or anything, but, like, it's just the easy way. I mean, we're guys, so we're probably got the different view than women would have on this. Like, it's wrong completely to begin with to rape someone, but just pure speculation, like you said.
If it was rape, I'm just speculating on the side that it there's a good chance that it might not have been, but more's got to come.
Like I said, it's he said, she said. Somebody said he never touched her, and the other one said didn't even see him. They were on the bed together. They didn't do anything. So,
all right, nothing conclusive at this point. And if something conclusive comes out, I'll retract my statement. But that's just kind of the way I feel about that.
She got the rape test done at the hospital, but refused to talk to cops, and still hasn't talked to cops yet. So, I don't know.
She's trying to gather a story. It almost seems like.
Yeah, exactly.
But speaking of the draft. Let's
Draft Day Eve.
Yeah, who are your surprise picks?
Now, surprise picks, just names to watch out for, in my opinion, that aren't the big names. Outside of, like, I think McCaffrey's going to go top 10 for sure. Somebody's going to go up and pick him up top 10. I'm a Panthers fan, and I really hope that happens for us. I think Fournette's going to be gone early, allowing a run on running backs to happen.
Where do you think Fournette's going to go before McCaffrey?
I think he goes 4 to Jacksonville. Jacksonville needs a running back. They've been using Denard Robinson and TJ Yeldon, who is just trash. Let's be honest. So I think outside of that, if I'm going to go, names that we haven't, just to be on the lookout for, a couple names from the school I go to. He's actually going to be our first draft pick. Our school just started football 3 years ago, I believe, and the first D1 season. His name's Larry Ogunjobi. He didn't play high school until his senior year. He's going to be one of the first 2 days that he's going to get picked, probably not the first round. He's an inside technique, the three technique. He's 6'2", 305. Didn't play football until he was a high school senior. He was 350 when he came into school. And now, I mean, he's proved that he can play at a D1 level. They've played Louisville. Yeah, they got their ash. But he proves that he can play. And he has all the tools to become a dominant big. But this is really the name that I'm on the lookout for, and it's Cooper Kupp. Okay, he's a 6'2" wide receiver out of Eastern Washington University, the Red Turf. Mm-hmm. He had 117 catches for 1,700 yards and 17 touchdowns last year. So he's not one of the big flashy names like Mike Williams, like Zay Jones. Who else? Who's the one out of Central Michigan or –
that is
Corey Davis.
Yeah,
it's another Antonio Brown. Ultimately, he just when he came in 2013, he had 93 catches for 1,600 yards as a freshman.
Right.
His sophomore year, 104 catches, 1,400 yards. His junior year, 114, 1,600 yards. So, you can say it's not against good competition, but those are numbers that stack up well against other competition he's going against. And as a late-round pick, I think that's a steal that any team any team could use. As long as you have the right offensive coordinator and the right tools around it, I think it'll be good. Other than that, I think Ryan Switzer's going to be a good pickup to stay on the wide receiver boat. I think if he can get in the right situation – Bill Belichick, out of UNC. If he gets to Bill Belichick or something like that, he'll be good. Really, I mean, other than that, there's not too many names that I'm familiar with for the later rounds. And the beginner rounds, like I said, just McCaffrey will be the biggest surprise to me.
Yeah. I think McCaffrey, what he's performed, they talked about him running, wide receiver routes better than slot wide receivers.
Yes.
He performed well in his pro day. I don't really see him as a surprise right now. Now, you talk to me, before the combine, I would think it's a surprise, but I think a lot of people have him moved up. But, it is in a time where you do not see running backs taken in the first round. Yeah. You've got, Fournette, McCaffrey. You have Joe Mixon, which I think is going to surprise people because I think he's going to be taken in the second. And if you would have talked about that when they did release the video to the public, people thought he was going to be in the fourth. Mm-hmm. So I do really, I think, kind of a hometown pick, but I think
without
Mixon
that video, like without that video, he's a first round pick. He's if not one of the top running back taken off the board. So
right.
I definitely I agree with you. It's probably going to be a surprise with how early he goes with the way the NFL is so PR related and protected.
Well, and I think too, John Ross from Washington is, he had a 4.22 40 at the combine. I think that's actually some of these sorry teams, the teams that just can't really get out of the gutter. Yeah. They're gonna reach, and they're gonna take somebody like him earlier than they should, just because of his speed. So I can kind of see, Cleveland's notorious for that. There's some teams out there that are notorious. So you might see him get, taken a lot earlier than he should. Yeah. I don't know if Cleveland would grab him at 12, but that would be, so a surprise that I could pick.
I think Cleveland's going to end up using that 12 pick to trade up. I think they're going to go – you can't pass on a Myles Garrett, regardless of his tape showing him being lazy or whatever, Warren Sapp and all them are coming out saying. He's a freak of nature, and the size that he is and the speed that he has, he's just a complete package. So if you get him with the right coaching – he's well deserving of the number 1 pick. I think they take that 12 pick and try to move up for one of the quarterbacks who it's just not a strong quarterback class this draft. I think is it Davis Webb who's coming out of California? Davis Webb?
Yeah, it's Davis Webb. He was at Texas Tech.
I know he's moving up the boards. Yes.
He's going to be solid. I just don't know if he's going to be – and same thing with Patrick Mahomes. That's that Texas Tech lineage. The
gunslingers.
And he, I've seen interviews with him on, several sites, and I just don't know about him being able to go to the pros, from that spread offense. He's got an arm, he's got all the talent, but he moved the pocket, extended plays, ran a lot of off schedule stuff. I don't think it's going to fit in a pro system. He's going to have to prove me wrong. With that.
Yeah, he's just got all the arm talent in the world. That's just what people look at these days, and they think they can mold. He's the sculpture that they can mold and become the next Bill Belichick or something like that.
So, but if you had to pick, we don't have a crystal ball. A Hall of Fame career, you've got to pick one player out of this year's draft that's going to have a Hall of Fame career.
I'm gonna have to go with Jamal Adams out of LSU. He is, without a doubt, in my opinion, probably the safest bet to say that with, at least out of the higher draft picks. He coming out of LSU, he's the most complete safety in the draft. If edge wasn't so premium in the league, he'd probably be the number 1 draft pick. If quarterbacks weren't so needy and probably going to get reached in front of him, he'd be up there. So I think ultimately he can be the next Ed Reed. He can stop the run. He has really good ball skills. He's an athlete, which is what you need at safety, and he's not afraid to tackle. And I think he's slightly better than Malik Hooker. He's more polished as it is right now. I think with time, he ultimately, like I said, could be Ed Reed, if not better. He's that good.
Yeah, that's a good pick. I just kind of reached out there because I had a few names in a hat that could potentially do something like that. I picked Reuben Foster. Linebacker from Alabama, just because I've seen some tape on him that he will stick you. He's a hard hitter, and his game translates. Even though he's 6 foot, his game translates to the NFL more than a lot of these guys that need some work. You mentioned Myles Garrett being lazy at times, great athlete, but he still needs some refining to get to that NFL level. I think a guy like Reuben Foster can come in and just start hitting folks and could potentially stay healthy.
But aren't there still? I was going to say there's still rumors right now that he has to get another shoulder surgery. Is it
Reuben Foster? I know he was not getting invited to the combine because he was in the hospital.
Yeah,
I did. Okay, yeah, there was some stuff about his shoulder, but I don't know. He's a linebacker. He's not a quarterback. I think he could overcome that all right.
Yeah.
Even though he's laying people out with his shoulders, I think it'll be all right.
No, yeah, he'll be fine.
So, but I'm just kind of going out there reaching. But the bust, the player that I would pick to bust. Okay, and this is going to surprise a lot of people. And I don't want to pick any of these players to bust. I want them to succeed.
Yeah.
Jabril Peppers from Michigan, and people think I'm crazy because he was at the Heisman ceremony. Awesome player, awesome college player. I will not take anything away from him. Jabril Peppers did an amazing job, but he moved around a lot, and and I think he's just one of those players that everybody's going to expect something from him, and for him to be at a high level coming to pros. But he only had one interception in college, didn't cause any fumbles. He was just a really great defensive player that you could play a lot of positions with.
He's just a chess piece, yeah.
I don't see him finding a home. It's probably going to be safety in the strong safety.
He's
in
the tweener. Yeah, he's a tweener.
I think could be a potential bust, and so that's kind of what I would pick.
I agree. I can see where you're coming from. I'm not going to say I completely agree. I think right now he's just a tweener. He's not fast enough to play safety. He's not the ideal speed you want to play safety, and not the ideal – he's probably too big. But he can – I think ultimately he can either become a Thomas Davis type who came out of Georgia to the Carolina Panthers, and he was a safety coming out of Georgia, and changed to an outside linebacker and still maintain the ball skills, the athletic abilities. He's just a raw athlete. So I think there's a coach out there that can do something with him. I think he has a chance of being one of the better players taken, as long as he doesn't slide after this lost diluted, drug test that he had. But if I'm going to go a bust on my side, I got two names. One that's going to be a real surprise, and it's really going out on a limb, and I'll go with this one. I think that just for how high he's probably going to get drafted, Mitchell Trubisky might be a bust, because he's a great college quarterback. He can make the college throws. He's making easy reads in the UNC offense, spread system, playing against lesser athletes in the NFL. He doesn't have the arm strength of a Mahomes or Deshaun Watson, somebody coming out. If you watch tape of him, there's passes where deep passes where he just lobs it in there. And in the NFL, it's a pick. But in college, you're like, oh, man, what a great throw. But he doesn't lead the receivers enough downfield. He kind of locks his front foot, so it makes it to where he can't fully get enough behind it. And that's something that, like Tebow, you can't change this late in the game. That's how he's going to be. So I think depending on where he goes, he has the biggest ability to be a bust. And then the one that's going to really surprise probably you two, I think Leonard Fournette has a pretty good chance of being a bust, because if you go back and watch him, all of his yards are really put up against pretty bad defenses for college standards. When he plays somebody like Alabama, which is your most NFL-ready defense for probably in college football, he doesn't do anything impressive. He ultimately is shut down at the end of the game. I'm going to look up his stats here.
Well, and he was actually on my list of to pick from a bust. I went with Jabril Peppers instead. But I agree. He had a really strong, I guess it was sophomore year. But he had some injuries, and then I didn't really see much. I saw at first, when I first saw him run, even he did okay against some good defenses his sophomore year, I was thinking Adrian Peterson. But as time went on and I watched him more and more, that quickly diminished, and I just don't see him being that way.
I mean, he ran for 31 yards on 19 carries back in 2015. I think it was his sophomore year. And then his best game against Alabama was 21 carries for 79 yards. That is not very good. Granted, they don't have any quarterbacks at LSU, so that doesn't help him at all. If he goes to Jacksonville, he has a really good chance of having a good year, because they have the receivers. They got a quarterback, they think, in Blake Bortles, who struggled last year. That's a whole nother subject. It's hard to say that somebody that good, that big of a beast, will be a bust. But I think McCaffrey's a better all-around player than him, ultimately. Because McCaffrey can return punts, can stay on the field on third down. He might not be able to pass block, but he can leak out of the backfield. He can run routes, like you said, better than a slot receiver. Right. So he's going to fill three needs at once, while Leonard Fournette's going to be your two down back.
Right.
Maybe three if he develops hands.
Yeah, last season, Christian McCaffrey, on Stanford's team, it wasn't like he had – it wasn't like they were more than one-dimensional. They were kind of like LSU. They ran the ball. That's all they did. And he still ran it pretty good. He had a couple bad games. but for the most part, he was their team at Stanford. So I agree. It's all about health, though.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I don't really consider health, though, to be a bust. If they get hurt, I can't call them a bust. If it's that's just bad luck, really.
Yeah, but their running style is, it's not upright. It's not in their thicker, more full running backs. I don't see them, getting hit or having
well, they're doing the damage,
injuries, right? So I think they'll be okay, but we shall see.
They should both be fine.
All right, man. Well, I guess that's about it for the first show.
It's a good first show. We'll work out the kinks.
We got it. Hopefully we'll have some music next time.
All right.
We'll,
we're getting there, all right, people? We're getting there.
Yeah. So I'm Just.
And I'm Crit.
This is Crit. And thanks for tuning in on Just Crittin' Around. We will see y'all next time.